last time you were on, I remember we did after hours where you were saving a few women's lives. And I did want to tell you this on camera. One of the girls that you spoke to actually quit OnlyFans on that day.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was a good conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people think that, I guess, those conversations are not worth it or the show is all theater. But for me, I want to sit across from these young women because anybody's life could have ended that way. You know what I mean? Like I could have ended up being one of these OnlyFans girls if there weren't so many like life interventions, because it's just being sold to women so much that this is the easy way out. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but I wanted to make sure I told you that, on camera, that she literally quit like not too long after you did that show. So that's great, saving lives.
That makes me happy.
So kind of with that, I saw that you had did a debate on Jubilee with a bunch of feminists. Obviously, we're in a modern day age. Things have changed quite a bit. We've both been pretty critical of feminism, but I think with what you're doing, you're able to really reach a demographic of women that just guys like me and Andrew Tate and others just aren't going to reach because, we're abrasive in the way that we get it. So they might want, another female's perspective on, the detriments of feminism and everything else like that. So kind of given how society is now, how do you see feminism today with young women? And then what do you predict is going to happen in the next 5-10 years? Are we getting better? Is it getting worse? What are your thoughts in general on that?
So I was actually very interested in Tate culture, as I'm going to call it. So I'm going to put you in that orbit of Tate culture, all of these male influencers that were coming out and calling girls bitchs and hoes and all this stuff. And people sat back and were like, oh my God, this is horrible, whatever. But I'm like, wait a second, whatever you think about him, whatever you think about Tristan, whatever you think about Myron, this culture got very big very quickly, and there's got to be something there, right? There has to be. So that was the reason why I flew out to meet Andrew Tate. There was all these conspiracies that I knew him before and all. I met Andrew a total of 2 times before I did his show. My husband hung out with him maybe 3 times in his life before him and I met. He was actually friends with PJW. And that's how I met Andrew.
Gotcha.
Like, so my husband was actually friends with PJW. And I just wanted to know what it was, because I'm never a person that will dismiss something on its face and call it a name. Like, there has to be some substance here. And what was actually happening was you got Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate and you got Myron Gaines because you perpetuated a culture of Lena Dunham's, right? So you're acting like men just got tired of it, is what happened. And finally, men looked around and somebody stood up and said, it's actually okay to be a man and you don't have to listen to any of these women. Now, you may not have liked how they said it. You may not have liked that they were doing this on top of Lamborghinis. But the reality is that what sat beneath that was a horribly toxic culture where women were dictating the terms to men. And every time a man did something that actually felt natural to them, you called it toxic masculinity, and books were written, and Lena Dunham's writing articles, and there's a show about this, and Lena Dunham's naked on Instagram. I wrote a whole chapter about Lena Dunham in my book, and she's naked on Instagram, and she's lecturing you if you don't want to see her, overweight, naked, and tatted up. So you can't blame the culture, Tate culture, until you are ready to address where this actually came from, which was women constantly bashing men over the head and telling them that masculinity, full stop, was wrong.
Given the problems that we have, obviously, whether it's me or Tate or other people, will kind of come in and say, hey, this is what you need to do as a guy. This is how the modern day marketplace is now when it comes to dating. What's your approach to kind of combating this problem from a female perspective?
First, you have to understand the origin of feminism, right? You have to understand that this was not a culture and an ideology that came because they wanted women to have equal rights with men, okay? This was a CIA-sponsored PSYOP. Gloria Steinem was sponsored by the CIA, okay? These protests were sponsored by men in government. A lot of them homosexual, actually. And the reason for that was simply because they wanted to tax, it was actually twofold, I would say. They wanted to tax household income both ways. And also they wanted women to, instead of focusing on their kids, which comes natural to women, right, to be the quote unquote, like I say, CEO of the household, they wanted to remove that and to have the children given to the government for 6 hours a day. Beyond 6 hours a day, 6 hours a day, plus whatever sports activities, which gives the government full control over the minds of the children. This came straight from the Pale of Settlement. After they assassinated the Tsar, you had these Jewish women like Emma Goldman, who came over to America. Emma Goldman was the mentor to what's her face from Planned Parenthood. I'm blanking on her name for a moment. I'm going to say Margaret Sanger. That was her mentor. And so this was, in fact, a very radical communist movement that came to America and sought to overthrow families, family institutions, strong men, feminine women, stands in the way of government and absolute control.
In your book, Make 'Em a Sandwich, what are some of the things that you tell the women? Because I'm assuming it's a book that's going to be centered around how women can kind of get in the marketplace, find a long-term partner, get married. What are some of the strategies that you tell women to implement to find a partner? You don't have to give it all away.
Yeah,
maybe
no,
one
it's
or
fine.
two.
I don't even try in my book to sell them a strategy or a technique. I just tell the truth. So here's the history of feminism. Here's what we were told in school. Here's actually how it went down, right? Knowledge is power. I give them the actual statistics of the fact that what was sold to you was you were going to be just like a man and you were going to be happier. Women are actually more miserable than they've ever been. If you go back and you ask most women about their grandmothers, they remember grandma being happy, right? So what they actually sold to you, now you've achieved this equality, quote unquote equality, and women have never been more miserable. And women are popping more pills than they were popping and finding it harder to find a partner and wondering why. Well, it's because you attacked natural masculinity. You told men that they shouldn't be allowed to lead. Women have to lead. And actually, you didn't want that, right? You were convinced psychologically in a classroom, as I was back when I wanted to be a feminist, or I thought feminism was cool. And you should know that. And I think that that's how you change things without trying to say, here's a strategy and here's how we're going to move forward. Let people know true knowledge, let people know true history. And I think the rest of the stuff happens naturally, or I hope.
For you on your journey, when did you figure out that feminism was a lie? Like, was there a certain event that triggered it that you were like, holy crap, this is BS?
I actually tell the story in this book. I think I do, actually. I think it's in this book, or it's in my last book, actually. It's in Blackout, of this teacher that I had. And I was required to take a Feminism 101. It was called Women's Studies. Maybe it was Women's Studies 201 at the University of Rhode Island. And at that time, I was like, yeah, I'm a feminist, of course. Who doesn't want equality as they sold it?
Yeah.
I get into this classroom, and this teacher, I realized very quickly, was not actually motivated by wanting equality. I was in a classroom where she was trying to convince me that every problem that we had in society was due to men. This was a literal class that was designed to basically teach women to hate men.
Yeah.
Like, no matter, all you had to do to get an A was she would introduce any problem. She could have lost her keys that morning and been like, why did this happen?
Patriarchy.
Well, you know what? Who designed cars? You know who designed cars? Do you know who designed the whole concept of a car key, and who designed the couch that you lost it in this morning? It was men. It became to a point where, for me, it was like laughable.
Yeah.
But there was this one particular class where it clicked for me. Because when I was in college, I had an eating disorder. So I was sitting in her class, and I was anorexic, and she gets into this topic of anorexia and eating disorders. And she gave us some statistic about the percentage of women that have eating disorders. And I'm making this up now, but it was something like 80% of people who have eating disorders are women. And she asked the class, why is that? And we were supposed to say, and she did say, that it was because men control the advertising agency and men want women to be skinny. And it had literally, I'm sitting here having this experience, nothing to do with a man. Like, nothing, no man said you're fat, you have to be skinny. That is completely made up. And I'm listening to her try to psychologically convince me that my eating disorder came from a man when it just factually didn't. Most people who suffer with anorexia know it's a control mechanism. It actually has nothing even to do with weight. It just is like, this is the one thing you can control. And I just kind of called her out on that, and I raised my hand. I was like, whoa, wait a second. Okay, well, let's look at another statistic. What percentage of people are juicing up with steroids, right? That's not a super healthy thing to do. If we said that 90% of it was men, would you have presented to the class that it was because of women, right? Because women are telling them they have to look like this. And she was, when I say, she went white, and she said to me, and I always tell the story on stage, she said to me, I feel like you were sent to me from the men's department.
Of course.
Yeah. And I told her back that I was sent to her from the common sense department.
Yeah.
And that everything couldn't be because of men. So I think that was kind of the first time that it clicked for me that this was some sort of a psychological program. In many ways, I was actually saved by.
How old were you at that point?
I was in college,
20s?
So I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
it was the first year of college.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a prerequisite. So it was interesting for me, I think.
Did that make you shift your priorities? Like,
I wasn't like, I was never a gun-ho feminist. I just was like in the back of my mind, same way that I was liberal. Like I was never voting Democrat, but if you had asked me, what do you think about this? I would have very quickly been like, of course we need feminism.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of thinking, man, these women are really annoying in this classroom. Because then there were the majors that were there, you know, the people, these women that were tatted up and like growing their armpit hair out. You know, we had those people in class and I was like, I don't like any of these people. So it made me think that there was something more to the feminist movement, I think, that which was indoctrination.
Interesting. Okay. So I think you've been able to do what every woman dreams of: have a family, have children, have your dream man, but simultaneously being able to also, you know, run a business and do what you want to do. And I noticed when you were debating on Jubilee, some of them tried to say, oh, well, you're a hypocrite. You're over here talking about feminism being bad, blah, 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 blah. But, you know, you obviously have a lot of things set up where you maximize your ability to be with your family, right? You do your show, get out of there, spend time with your family. What would you say to the people that sit there and try to call you a hypocrite because, you know, you're successful in your own right, but you've been able to also balance a family, which many women can't do. They want to do it, but they can't do it. What would your response be to those critics?
First and foremost, do not allow people to rule you by exceptions. What I mean by that is, it is such a mistake to look at my life and to say, Candace did this, and so therefore I can do this. My life is actually exceptional, right? We are sitting in my house. I do things on my own terms. I wake up in the morning. I get to homeschool my kids, right? I'm homeschooling my children for hours. That's now very important to me. I get to do a podcast from home. And I am actually doing something that I enjoy, right? What is the number one thing? If you find any woman that makes it and she's successful, what is she doing? She's tapping into her femininity, communication. Women communicate more than men. I have a whole chapter on this. If you have a daughter and a son, you know this. Girls start speaking faster, and we will speak more words from men for the rest of our lives. And when you actually look, and I ask people in this chapter, who is the most, if I ask you the question right now, who is the most successful man in the world? Just give me your answer. If you have to name a couple of them.
I was going to say, like, from a financial perspective?
Yeah, sure. Full stop. If I said who's the most successful man in the world, who would you
could say like the richest guy in the world, who would be Elon, even though it pains me to say that. But
okay, no, but that's the right. You would say Elon, or you would say
something based on meritocracy, finances, and
you would
status.
say Jeff Bezos. Precisely. Everyone would say the same answers, right? If I ask you who is the most successful woman in the world, what would you say?
That's where it gets true. Yeah,
right.
I see what you're saying.
Like, what is it? Like off the top of your mind, like what are the names that come to your mind?
Yeah, it's an ambiguous. Like you're like, okay, well, are we going to go off career? Are we going to go off where?
But most people would say like Taylor Swift or Oprah. Mm-hmm. These women are nowhere near the richest women in the world. Nobody knows the name of the richest woman in the world. Mm-hmm. And so I go about through this in my chapter. Yeah, you'd say Beyonce. I'm like, these are the names that you would say off the top of your head if I asked you who was the most successful. Nobody knows. Everybody knows the names of the most. The richest men in the world, and yet nobody knows the names of the richest women in the world.
Good
right?
point.
Nobody knows the names of them. And the answer is a Russian woman. And I talk about this in my book. I'm like, nobody knows her name. And the women that you do name actually all tapped into their femininity. Taylor Swift was writing songs about relationships. Mm-hmm. She was writing songs about looking for love, and women flocked to this. Oprah was communicating to the housewife, right? She was speaking about issues. They're tapping in actually to the one thing that actually you think they're standing against. Oh, they're the ultimate feminists. No, they tapped into their femininity and found success, actually. And women do not, when we think about success, we don't measure it in terms of finances. That's why these women, we think, are the most, quote unquote, successful women in the world. Mm-hmm. Whereas men naturally think finances. Oh, it's Jeff Bezos, it's Elon Musk. So I do a chapter and I speak about that in my book about who the richest woman in the world is. And then the next 10 women who are the richest in the world are all rich because of who they divorced, right? Yep. Yeah. So what is the picture that we're recognizing here? We don't measure success in the same terms as men measure success, nor should we. And it's important for women not to think that becoming financially rich somehow means that you are successful or that you have triumphed something in life.
And since having children, like, how has that like shifted your priorities as far as, I mean, and you can go into as much detail or as little as you want, as far as like how you've kind of prioritized child rearing versus like maybe your career and doing social media as much? Because I notice You know, before you were super active, you still post obviously every day, but now it's like, you know, you have other priorities. So how has that kind of shifted?
Yeah, my family is my number one priority. I would say having kids made me more secure than ever before. I just don't care about the noise. None of it matters anymore. And also, I have real stake in this fight. Before, these were just ideas. America shouldn't be run like this. This is why, this is what's bad. Once you have kids, you have actually a real stake in the future of America. So when I am podcasting, the subjects that I am covering to me are existential, right? Are we being ruled by pedophiles and criminals? That's now existential for me. What is happening in the school systems? What is happening in these churches? What is going on? This is now existential because my children will inherit the America that I fight for or the America that I remain silent about.
And just to kind of finish off with the feminism real quick. So what do you think are the top 3 things holding women back from fulfillment and happiness right now?
The number one thing I would say that's holding women back would be not understanding the history of feminism. I think once you know that, everything, like, knowledge is actually power. I would say the second thing that's holding them back is the psychology of peer pressure. And that is the psychology, and the peer pressure starts when we are in school, with women being told you have to go to college, you have to have a career. The last thing you should be thinking about, you have plenty of time. You don't actually have plenty of time. Biologically speaking, you literally don't have plenty of time. Men might have plenty of time, biologically speaking, but your body is telling you you don't. And so I think, and then that kind of gets into the education. The education system truly is just Soviet propaganda in the classrooms. So those would be the top 2 things. And so they're ignoring their gut instinct and following the herd.
So understanding what feminism is and how it came into place makes it a lot easier to understand everything else.